Hi everyone, this recording was made a few years ago, but is still relevant today. Some references may be slightly out of date, but I have topped and tailed it to make it a little more fit for purpose. I hope you enjoy it.
So, who am I? I'm Paul Appleyard. As I say, I was born in England, in the northern part of England, a little market town called Doncaster. And what I'm going to tell you today is, I think I need to emphasise that it's just my point of view and it's my take on how I live with a visual impairment. I understand that we all want a cure for our various different conditions. Of course we do. But I sort of take the approach that I can't personally, directly influence the solutions and the oncoming of the remedies for our conditions. But what I can do is focus on what I do have and what I can do. I refuse to let my condition define me, and I believe that I am someone with Stargardt's disease and not a sufferer of Stargardt's disease. And that's pretty much my attitude throughout the whole of my life, really. That's the way I've looked at it all the way through. So I'll give you a brief history, if I may. Starting back, way back when I was diagnosed at 11 years old with Stargardt's disease, and it completely and utterly devastated my parents, particularly my dad. But I realised even at that tender age that I had two choices. One was to sit back, cry in a corner, say, woe is me, what am I going to do? Or I could just get on with things, attempt things, and try and do what I wanted to do anyway in life. So that's what I did. And I went to regular school. I didn't go to the school for little blind boys. I went to the regular school. And I played in the soccer team. I actually played in the local league, in the local basketball team. And I just contributed and tried to do everything that I wanted to do. But in terms of education, I got good school results. And a lot of that was down to my friends. I got very, very little support from the education authorities. But I got tremendous support from my friends. One guy in particular who would sit with me in most of my lessons and just read what was on the board to me. Phenomenal help, absolutely was, and he enabled me to get the results that I did. So, having gone through regular school, I needed to try and find a job. So, as we all do, at the very young age, we start going for interviews, and I had interview after interview after interview, and as soon as the subject of eyesight came up, they weren't interested anymore. And I'm sure you guys must have experienced this in various different parts of your life. Everything seems to be hunky-dory until other people's prejudice kick in and it affects the situation, the relationship, the interview, whatever it might be. But that's their issue, it's not ours. Sorry for that interruption there. You probably just heard my two little dogs outside. They're Pomeranians. They're two Pomeranian little terrorists, we call them. They can hear something 3 miles away and come running to you as if to say, "Did you hear that?" Yeah, they bark a lot, so they're outside, but we can still hear them. So apologies for any interruptions. So yeah, I had lots and lots of interviews, and then eventually I had an interview with a high street bank, and they were quite interested in talking to me, even when the eyesight issue reared its head. They were no longer interested in me going on their accelerated training program, which is what I was actually applying for, but they were very interested in supporting me on what was called the sheltered placement scheme. And that was a scheme where you had a technical employer and a host, and my host was the bank, and my employer, technically my employer, was a separate company, and this separate company was a big UK disability charity. that eventually, later on, changed their name to Scope, S-C-O-P-E, Scope. And very quickly, the way this scheme worked was that I was paid by both organisations. The Scope paid a proportion, and then the host company, the bank, also paid a proportion of my salary. I personally didn't care anything about how the system worked. I was just in work, and I was delighted to have been given a chance to enter the world of work, really. So I started at the bank, at the very bottom, as most people did, in the processing room. And I struggled to get opportunities. I kept asking and asking and asking, and sometimes I may have been a little overzealous, but I knew that I had to keep pushing to get the opportunities that I wanted to progress, because as everyone else did, I wanted to progress too. So I kept trying, I kept asking, and eventually I moved up the ladder step by step, and I was a cashier for a while. And just think about that just for a moment. You got a blind guy who's working for a bank as a cashier. And I hope my office manager of the time is not listening to this recording, because I did take one or two risks, shall we say, cashing checks for people that perhaps shouldn't have been having checks cashed for. But anyway, that's a period of my life which is now over. I no longer take such risks, but it was fun at the time. And believe it or not, because of my visual impairment, and you will believe this, guys, because you must do similar things, because of my visual impairment, I'm very, very particular, and I take great detail in looking at things as closely as possible with magnification, etc. So I tend to not miss an awful lot because I'm looking so very closely at things. It takes so much longer to do it, but I'm actually quite meticulous, and I'm sure you guys are too. So I hardly ever got any mistakes on my till, whereas other people were. So I went through what was then the stereotypical promotion, went from the machine room, as I say, through cashiering into the financial services department, and various other bits and pieces along the way too. I was a business banker where I had a portfolio of customers that I looked after. But eventually I reached what I classed as my home. I went into HR. I finally realised that I wanted to be in the people issues business, and I got a job in the home finance unit of the bank in human resources. And they were very, very good to me, and I mean very good. They gave me the education, the opportunity, everything I needed to progress. And eventually I attained a head office role with the very same bank, and I was with them for 18 years. Eventually, before I did leave, I was Group Equality and Diversity Manager with specific responsibility for disabled employees. Now, one thing you should know, as I say, I was diagnosed at 11 years old with Stargardt's disease. But at 28 years old, that's when I found out what the specialist said when I was originally diagnosed. Oh, and incidentally, when I was 28, just after I found out this information I'm about to tell you, that's when I really started to achieve things in my life. That's where things, they just went into outer space. I started achieving so many more things, much, much bigger things. And it was for a very specific reason. So here's what happened. The specialist at the time was the prominent eye specialist in the UK, and he said to my parents, take him home, let him get on with his life, and he will never achieve anything. Wow. Yep, that's exactly what he said. And initially, it made me very, very, very angry. And perhaps this may be why my mum and my dad didn't tell me this when I was really young, because I had the impetus and the get up and go to try and do things anyway. But it did make me really angry when I found out at 28 years old. But Over time, and it took, believe me, it took a long time, I did eventually realise that the specialist was only doing his job at that time. And he was giving the information, giving the prognosis, the best he possibly could at that time with the information that he had. And we're talking 1979, virtually nothing was known about the various macular dystrophies and Stargardt's in particular. Now, obviously we know a lot more, but then, no. So, eventually I did realise that he was just doing his job. But at the time, at 20 years old, wow, did that give me a kick to start achieving even bigger things. So anyway, just coming back to the employment history, I was actually made redundant in while I was at the bank at head office, which was absolutely fine because we actually set the equality and diversity team up on purpose to make ourselves redundant. And what I mean by that is we wanted to not have an equality and diversity department within the bank. We wanted equality and diversity to be integrated into the bank, into every single department, and hopefully become a way of life for the bank. So I became redundant. I was quite happy about that, and I moved to a new employer. And this is where it gets quite interesting. I applied for a role at a UK disability charity, and I became an assistant director there, heading up their diversity team. This big disability charity, you probably guessed by now, was Scope. So I'd done the full circle. They helped me out 18 years previous, 19 years previously, and they got me into the world of employment, which I was ultimately grateful for. Having done the full circle with the bank, I then applied for a role, got the role, and gave back to Scope myself. It was a fantastic 2 years that I spent there, but at the age of 38 now, my wife came to me and said, I have the opportunity to go and work overseas. And we had a lifelong goal to spend most of our time overseas in the sun, doing what we wanted to do. So we decided to go and we gave it a go. So we reached one of our life goals. So I'm now semi-retired at 38 years old, which was quite nice. Thank you very much. And I took up golf. I was playing golf already, but only on a very, very intermittent basis. So I decided to take up golf a little more seriously. And I wasn't very good at the time at all, but now I got the time to try and progress. So I spent some time learning, taking lessons, practicing and playing a lot. And I got to the point where I thought, this is great, I'm having a great time with my buddies playing golf, but I found out about the world of blind golf. Now, just very, very quickly as an aside, blind golf is no different to regular golf, other than two things. Firstly, you can ground your club in a hazard, and for you non-golfers, that pretty much means if you're in a bunker, or the sand pit, whatever you want to call it, you can touch the sand just to know where the surface is, but not to test it. A regular golfer cannot touch the surface, that's just one of the rules. And then the other small difference is that a blind golfer can have a guide, and that guide can do anything for them other than actually take the shot. So it's pretty much like regular golf. So this is me still being pushed by that desire to prove the specialist wrong and to achieve things. So I'm thinking, I think I could do quite well at this. I'm enjoying my regular golf. I think I could do quite well at blind golf. So I entered the world of blind golf. And I did okay. First year wasn't fantastic, but it was okay. It was the initial year. And then I started to try even harder, play more, and the desire to show that I wasn't bowing down to the prognosis was even stronger as the results got better. So I won several blind golf events. I also regular events too. I became England #1 blind golfer in 06, 07, and I played for my country 3 times at international level. And that still wasn't quite enough for me. So I then thought, what's the pinnacle of this blind sport? And that really, for me, came loud and clear very quickly, and that's to be world champion. So I attempted to become world champion in 2008. And looking back, I took completely the wrong approach. And I admit that now, and I've certainly learned from it, and I'll tell you why very shortly. Back then, it was all about the result. And now, it's all about the journey. And what I mean by that is, in 2008, my sole focus was on becoming world champion. But I forgot about enjoying the process, the training, the time with the specialist, the golf coach, the time with friends, learning and improving. I forgot about the journey. So after 2008, my view on my approaches to winning golf events, particularly big blind golf events, was to enjoy the journey more and to celebrate each and every step along the way with the people who were closest to me. So that's why I say I hope for a cure. We all hope for a cure for our individual conditions, but I'm not waiting for it. I really, really do think it's important to enjoy the journey of life and not totally focus on the end result, on the cure that may or may not come. I'm convinced we'll miss out on so much if we purely focus on the cure and the end result. We have to enjoy the journey. So that time in 2008, I came tied 3rd, and it wasn't the best result, it wasn't the result I was after, and bearing in mind I was focusing just on the result, I felt so deflated, so flat afterwards. It was like, now what? But I learned and I changed my approach. And my next attempt for the World Championships was quite some time after, actually. It was 6 years later. So in 2014, I tried again. But I had a completely different approach. This time, it was very much a team approach. I realised it wasn't just all about me. We prepared to the best of all our abilities to make sure I was in the position to be able to do my very, very best in Australia in May 2014. There were 4 titles on offer. 2 titles in my sight category, which is B3, and 2 titles overall. The gross and the net in both category and overall. And that basically means with and without handicap. Sorry, the other way around. Gross is without handicap, net is with your handicap deducted. So there were 4 titles, and I'm very pleased to say that in May 2014, at a very beautiful place called Nelson Bay, just north of Sydney in Australia, I became triple world blind golf champion. I won 3 out of the 4 titles, missing the 4th by just 3 shots. Wow, yeah. So now I'm triple world blind golf champion. Let me just remind you what the specialist said all that time ago. Take him home, let him get on with his life, and he'll never achieve anything. So what did I do after 2014? Well, I wasn't deflated because I'd enjoyed every single step along the journey to becoming world champion. I'd celebrated it all the way through with all the people who've been helping me. So I decided to try and share what had happened, and I became a motivational speaker. And I attempt to encourage others to follow their true path and not to accept the story, if you like, that others tell them they should be doing. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. You shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Don't accept the story that others place upon you. So the Blind World Golf Championships actually take place every 2 years. So having become triple world champion in 2014, I just had to try and defend and retain the titles, didn't I? Yeah? I certainly did. And I did it in exactly the same way that I did in 2014. The same approach, the team approach. Celebrating each step of the journey, all the successes. Learning from the mistakes, but focusing on the journey and not just the end result. Now, in 2016, November 2016, in a place called Shinrin-koen, just northwest of Tokyo in Japan, there were only 2 of my 3 titles that were actually being contested. 2 of them weren't. It's entirely up to the host nation as to which titles they use, as long as they use the core ones. So pretty much I had 1 title to defend, and I did it. I won again. So I won the title, retained the title that I was playing for, and obviously I kept the other 2 because they hadn't been contested. So 2014, as you can tell, was still proving a point for me, but 2016, that was for me, not proving a point to others. 2016 was for me and my people. But now I've retired. I no longer play blind golf, and if any of you are fans of Formula 1, you'll see that Nico Rosberg won his first world title this last year and then promptly retired. So I call it doing a Nico. I actually made my decision virtually instantaneously, whatever the word is, after I won the title in Japan, that I was going to retire, but didn't announce it for another month or so. Nico got in before me, the limelight hogger as he is. But there you go. So yeah, I've retired from blind golf. My energies, my focus are now elsewhere. I still play golf, play regular golf, and I still try my level best to win competitions, but competing against the regular sighted guys. So a few things I just want to share with you that excuse me, I actually believe in. I believe in being proactive. We have to take steps forward ourselves to achieve what we want to achieve. Nothing will be given to us. I don't believe in waiting for luck. I actually don't think there's any such thing as luck. You create your own future by your actions. And that's why my business is actually called Don't Wait for Luck Limited. I believe completely, wholeheartedly, utterly, all the other adjectives you can think of, in teamwork. We, as individuals, as human beings, cannot survive on our own. As people with visual impairments, we need assistance to do certain things. We can't get away from that fact. And what we shouldn't do is hold back from asking for that help. Get people around you guys that are willing to help. Find your own team. My golf team, my team of people that helped me do what I did in blind golf, are actually called Team Blind Apple. We have a name for the people that are around me. Get the team around you, the people that want to help, and never ever be afraid of asking for that help. People do want to help. And also, you may have guessed, I don't push it down people's throats, but I do believe in myself too. Especially now. Having done all the things that I have done, I believe in myself. Whether others do or not, and I now know it's not relevant whether other people believe in me or not. It's highly relevant whether I believe in myself. Now, I know I can achieve what I want to achieve. I actually know that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve too. But you make that choice on what you want to do. I would never ever sit here and say you have to do certain things, because I'm not going to push my story onto you to be your story. But find your way. Find what's right for you and go for it. Wholeheartedly, go for it. Finally, just a couple of things. Firstly, just one point, if you like, and then something else for you to listen to. The point is, there is life after vision loss. Period. No matter what people say, your life does continue after vision loss. It will be different. It is different. Of course it is. Mine's been different for 40 years, but actually I don't remember having perfect eyesight. So actually, what's the norm now is normal. And my life is great. There is life after vision loss. And finally, a little recording that has not been published yet. It's a poem, if you like, that I wrote to use within my business, and it's to try and encourage people to go for their dreams. Because you can achieve them if you do things in the right way, over and over again. So please enjoy the poem. I hope you've enjoyed the time with me today. It's been great fun sharing my story with you. And if you want to know more about the golf journey, if any of you guys are Facebookers, you can look up the Facebook page Team Blind Apple, Road to Japan. That's Team Blind Apple Road to Japan. You'll see lots of information there about the journey to becoming world champion in 2016. Isn't hindsight wonderful? You see, all the signs were there. No longer being able to see the aeroplanes in the sky, not being the first to shout, "I can see the sea!" and those eye charts progressively becoming harder and harder. So there you go, diagnosed with Stargardt's disease and pretty much written off at 11 years old. Mr. and Mrs. Appleyard, take him home, let him get on with his life, and he probably won't achieve anything. This is the story the experts were running with. This is the way the story used to go. You see, the story you tell yourself, no matter where it comes from, eventually will become your reality. So if your reality isn't the one that you want, you simply need a different story. I dare you to let go of your old limiting beliefs and just see what happens. You can decide to simply ditch the stories that don't serve you anymore and say hell no to the so-called experts, ignoring the critics and ignoring the doubters. It truly is amazing what you can achieve when you tell the right tale. Sometimes things don't go to plan, and when they don't, it's okay to feel confused, frustrated, or even peed off for a while. But if you can harness the energy that comes from these strong emotions, imagine what it would feel like to stand up, find your mojo again, find your way through the pain, being relentless and trusting yourself no matter how big the hurdles were that came your way. After all, winners don't believe in the odds. No matter how much it's stacked against them, winners know it's never over. Never over until you stop trying. You will have your doubts and you will have your fears. You will worry about what others think. Self-doubt will definitely be there, and believe me, the mocking will hurt. No one says it's easy, yet those who succeed never run away from the fear. Or worse still, rationalise that BS and enable it to become their new story. Just acknowledge the destructive self-talk, park it and prevent it from getting a grip. Quitting isn't an option. Keep pushing yourself, because that's what champions do. Be a winner, my friend. Find your motivation and tell that new tale. Find your passion, find your way forward, be proactive and take habitual steps forward. Adapt and try new approaches, and above all, enjoy each and every step along the journey. So set your sights high and don't hold back. Tell the story that enables you to flourish. Don't wait for luck. When would right now be the perfect time to
to examine your current story.
To round off this recording, I'd like to say how delighted I am to be joining Bhavna and her team at Stargarts Connected, helping out where I can. If you want to know more about me, feel free to take a look at my blog at www.stargartsdisease.com, and I look forward to connecting with you all soon.